It's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualized, my asexual life. This is a place for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in your own. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button below right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live like now, post a new video. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're finding it useful, helpful, insightful in any way, shape or form, or you just want to give this channel some like love. The thumbs up are really, really, really appreciated. So if you didn't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this beautiful book, Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, A Celebration, Asexual Diversity. I'm also the author of this awesome book, Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook, How to Manage Fibromyalgia to have less pain, more energy and feel happier like a superhero rock star. This is great if you've got anxiety and depression. It's got loads of tools and techniques to help overcome depression and decrease anxiety. Even if you don't have fibromyalgia, you can still apply it to everyday life to reduce your pain and have a ton more energy like I have. And I'm also the founder of asexualise.com and the founder of Asexualise Academy, which is the world's first online training centre and school for asexuals and asexuality. Welcome to tonight's show. Hello, Theola. Lovely, lovely, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming on this show. So, in tonight's episode, I want to talk to you about why is Asexual Guide to Sex the most anticipated book of 2020? What is the benefits of it? Why would you be interested in it? So today I've been working on the Asexual Guide to Sex book again. I have got another story completed with the person who it belongs to. So we were doing a lot of edits today. The final edits that's now done. So far I've got four people's stories complete. There is 14 people in the book besides me, so yeah, I've still got a way to go, but yeah, 4 whole stories are complete now for the book, which I'm really, really happy about. Often a proper professional book like this, which isn't copied from anyone, it's real fresh stories of real life asexuals, you know, all the work that goes into it usually takes about oh, thanks Yola, thank you. It usually takes about a year for me to write a book because I'm not hiring someone to write it for me. I'm writing it myself, and also the asexuals are writing it as well. The people that are in my book, the interviewees, they are writing it with me, so they're writing their own stories and we're going back and forwards. Hello, Richard. I'm really good, thank you. Really good. I'm talking about my Asexual Guide to Sex book because I've been working on that today. Hi, Andy. Lovely to see you. Kiss to Richard. Kiss to Andy. Kiss to Theola. So I've been really happy working on that. I actually was off social media for a long time today. Oh, hi, Tony. Nice to see you. I don't think I've seen Tony before. Oh, can't wait for this book. Thank you, Andy. Yes, the Asexual Guide to Sex book is the most anticipated book of 2020 because it's so ace, obviously. So why is it so important? Hi, Claire. Lovely to see you. So why is it so important you get this book? Do anyone need help here? I help people here. If you need help, then I'm a coach. I know of a powerful man. Well, no, we don't need a powerful man. Thank you very much. I'm Sandra. I'm a relationships dating coach for asexuals. So yes. So basically, with the Asexual Guide, that can help you get back your ex. No, thank you. If you're just going to come in my feed and plug someone else, then right, let's get rid of this person. I do apologize. I'm not having someone else decide to take over my channel like that. I do apologize. And as I've said before in a previous show, never ever try to get your ex back. They're your ex for a reason. They exited the door. Goodbye. Off they go. Right. That's cleared that up. One up. Right, okay, so the Asexual Guide to Sex book, let's get back to talking about that and what the benefits of it are. So basically, I'm working on it, and the asexuals that are taking part in this book have done a lot of work themselves. I have to say they've done a huge proportion of the book work, right? Because it requires a lot of detailed information about when they first had sex. So in this Asexual Guide to Sex book, it is about asexuals who have had sex before, who've lost their virginity. And I don't know whether you like that term or not, but those are the terms I use in the actual book. And they're describing what it was like when they have sex for the very first time. And I think it's very, very important for asexuals to be able to have this book, regardless of whether they like sex or they don't like sex. So obviously some sex repulsed asexuals might be kind of cringing right now. Why are you writing the Asexual Guide to Sex book? Because it's a book that people need in their lives, right? Because although not every asexual might want it, may need it, that's fine. I understand that. Sex repulsed asexuals might think it's too much. They don't want anything to do with that. I love you dearly. I appreciate you. And I so understand you. I am going to be doing other books for asexuals that won't be around this topic. You know, they won't be geared towards people who are asexual, who do want to try or thinking about trying sex, which this book is aimed at, right? So, so you have to understand that I'm not just writing books just for this particular type of asexual. I've got other books lined up, but you know, it's important. This book is so important because at the end of the day, a lot of asexuals will come into contact at some point with a sexual person, and a lot of asexuals may consider trying sex for the first time, right? And there is no book on the market for asexuals specifically that can help them make an informed choice and decision about whether to have sex or not, right? And sex is very sensationalized. We all know that in the media. It's all over advertising. It's always being pushed all the time as this wonderful, amazing, glorious thing that everyone should be doing, that sex equals love, and which we clearly know as asexual it doesn't. And this book is important not only for the asexuals that are thinking about trying sex for the first time and should they do it or not, it's also very imperative this book comes out to have asexuals say their own words about what sex really feels to them. You know, for far too long have sexuals been able to, like, you know, have the holding space in society for talking about sex and glorifying it and you know, putting it on a pedestal, if you like. And for far too long, as everyone in their head, when they're brought up by their parents and teachers and society, the majority of people are conditioned to believe that everyone likes and wants and needs sex. But they'll find in this book that simply isn't true. That there are asexuals in this book, people who don't experience sexual attraction and don't want sex. Obviously, there are different types of asexuals in the book. So there are asexuals, you know, that may be having sex still, and they're asexuals that might have had it and not having it again, right? There's different types of asexuals in the book, and that's how it will be very, very invaluable experience to learn from their experiences. That's why the book's so good as well. It's a very like a safety thing, right? It's a very like a safety thing, right? So excuse me, sorry, I'm getting some people coming in being just trying to go in my chat. I didn't notice it because I was busy trying to concentrate on my audience here instead of people that are just being rude in my chat. So basically, yeah. So, you know, this book is going to be revolutionary because there's never another book like it on the market. You know, there's basically loads of books geared towards sexuals about sex, but nothing for asexuals. And there's nothing on the market that actually tells the nitty gritty of what sex is really like in everyday situations. You know, not the glorification of it, like, you know, the awkwardness of it sometimes, you know, and you know, and the difference between how an asexual mind works and thinks compared to a sexual. And that's something we need out there in society. We need people to understand us on this deep fundamental level, why asexuals really don't want sex. Why I'm not saying every asexual doesn't have sex in the book, right? I'm not saying that, but there are certain stories in the book which you can truly understand why an asexual or how they think so differently to a sexual about sex. And this is something we really, really need out in society, you know, because sexuals for far too long have had their say about sex. It's about time we had ours, you know. And some people still don't believe asexuality is a real sexual orientation, right? They can't understand how someone doesn't get the need, urge, or want for partner sexual intercourse. They can't understand how that can happen and that can be true. But this book will show them that. That's why I love writing these type of books. These type of books that I do are like an interview style, and I specifically do it on purpose like that. Like, some people might think that looks easy. It's really hard to get the answers to those specific questions right in the short amount of space without overloading people's brains, but getting straight to the point and dealing with delicate topics. These people that are asexuals in the book, they are talking about delicate parts of their life. They're talking when they first had sex, they're to help other asexuals. They are selfless in that respect. These people are selfless. They're sharing very intimate details to help all you out, and I don't know another book like it on the market. It's just incredible. And they're giving their valuable insight and experience, and every experience is different, which is why the book's so good as well. There's no two stories that are the same at all. You'll see resemblances in some stories, and you'll see some stories are complete polar opposites of each other, right? And you'll be able to see how an asexual and sexual relationship with sex involved as well will or could or does work. So it's a very, very invaluable book. And like I said, every story is completely different, and I can't show you the content obviously of book, but basically I've got someone's story here who I was working on today, and the questions are geared to basically saying about how the person lost their virginity and what happened when they first had sex. And it specifically asks a question like, what did the experience of having sex for the first time feel like to you as someone who is asexual? Because it can feel completely different to a sexual person. And the way I write my books is it's a show, not a tell. So in writing, I'm an author and a writer, in writing, one of the rules is you should show a person rather than tell a person the content. And that usually, a lot of that as well comes through in fiction books. I don't tend to write fiction books these days, but with a non-fiction book, sometimes it's hard to express exactly what you mean in a scenario where you're showing the reader, not telling them. And this is what this format does. I mean, you have to understand that although it looks simple on paper, the person's had a load of questions, they've answered it, it's their personal story, it's very, very hard. I mean, the person whose story this is, I mean, we've gone through over 41 emails. This is just for one person's story. So you have to understand, like, this person I've been working on their story since June last year. This is, I've had some time off. I haven't been doing it consecutively all that time, but this is how long it's been going on for. Do you see what I mean? It's a long time. And, we're fine-tuning, me and the person whose story it is, fine-tuning it so that the person coming into the book can really understand the scenario, the scene, like set the scene very quickly to understand. Because when you're asking someone to explain how, what losing their virginity felt like, what having sex for the very first time felt like, that's a very, very delicate matter, and we have to try and give it, thanks for the thumbs up, we have to try and give it some context, but without going into the whole history of the person. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't need the whole history of the person. You need to know in that particular context what's happened, but you kind of need to know exactly that, the context. And we've been very careful in the way we've worded stuff as well, because obviously the book is meant to be geared towards asexuals who've never tried sex before, or very, ideally, or very inexperienced at it, right? And so we're having to try and sometimes say things in more plainer, explained language than you would do with someone who is far more experienced in that type of thing. And it's, this book is well anticipated because, it will show how sexual stuff and asexual stuff could go together, or how it doesn't work together. Do you see what I'm saying? And, some asexuals, they are on the more grey end of the asexual spectrum. Do you know what I mean? Some of the grey asexuals, it's kind of difficult for them because they are they do have some sexual tendencies despite being on the asexual spectrum. They're not a pure asexual, as it were. They still don't fit into the total sexual category, do you know what I mean? Which does make them in kind of no man's land, right? And so we not everyone in the book comes under grey asexual, right? This person at the this person identifies, well, I'm not going to give it away, but not every person in the book is totally grey asexual. Do you know what I mean? There are different people in the book. And so, it's anticipated because the people that want to buy it, they want to understand how an asexual and sexual relationship could possibly work together. And also, they want to make an informed choice and decision where sex is right for them, not from the good, the bad, and the ugly perspective of sex, not just the glorification, let's put it on a pedestal and pretend everything's hunky-dory type thing, because sex is very it's a skill that needs to be learned if you are going to try and do it. There's certain skills involved in it to get it right and to get it better. And in the book, it's actually basically saying, asking questions like, what can the asexual get out of it? So I go through do they find sex an enjoyable experience for the first time, or do they feel pressurized into it? And then, it goes through, because when asexuals are thinking about having sex for the first time, if they're thinking about that, obviously many asexuals won't be, but the ones that are, one of the questions is, will sex hurt me, or is it an enjoyable experience? That some of these people are answering. So in the book, there's people so far that I've got answering one set of questions, and other people have answered two sets of questions. So this is in a more detailed advice, help, and guidance, because if I was starting over again my life and I was thinking about having sex for the first time, one of the things I didn't know was, would it hurt or not? Because I never even thought about it, because it never crossed my mind until the guy at the time said, do you want to basically have sex with me, and did pressurize me into it. So I think that's really important to find out from other asexuals if it actually hurt them physically or mentally or emotionally or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I think it's very important to do that, because sex is a very physical, mental, and emotional thing, which a lot of other channels and books and that, they don't go into all this type of thing, which this is what the book does. It goes into a lot more of the emotional aspects, the physical and the mental together. And it's really important to have that balanced view and opinion of it, rather than, like I said, the glorification of it and the pedestal that people put it on. This book gives actual immersive experiences of the people in it to truly show you what it's like to live in that type of life, and whether you really want to even go there. Do you know what I mean? And there are questions like, what are the benefits of sex from an asexual point of view? Which, is there any benefits or is there not? Well, some people in this book have put some benefits down, believe it or not. So, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's what the experiences of the people in the actual book, right? But it does go through a lot of things like, what if I, like, a lot of questions that people would have if they were asexual, think about trying sex, like, what if I try sex and I realise I really don't want to do it again? What will happen to that relationship? Is there any hope it can survive? So, I'm asking all the nitty-gritty questions, the really tough questions that people will want to know the answer to, and how do I ensure my asexual needs are met within a sexual relationship? And I think that's so important, because if you are thinking about having sex, or you're going to have it for whatever reason, you need to make sure that your asexual needs are met, right? That you actually are getting something out of the experience yourself, because if you're not, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? You might say, what's the point anyway, because you're asexual. But there are, some asexuals, they might like some physical touching, they might like some massage, for example, or they might like some of the cuddling aspect of sex. Depends obviously on the partner you've got, whether the partner's just a stick it in person, or whether the partner's doing other stuff as well. So obviously this all needs to be discussed and really carefully considered, and the asexual is going to be in much better position if they read this book, if they're thinking about having sex or doing some sexual stuff, to know what type of things they should be needing and wanting and thinking about having for themselves to make the experience a bit better for them. Do you see what I mean? If it's not something that comes naturally to us, which, you know, even asexuals that have sex, it's not usually something that comes to us naturally a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? That's not the case for everyone, but for, you know, for some asexuals, quite a lot. You know, it's not something that we really are, you know, like set up for, geared up for in our life, because it's not something we really need inherently, usually within ourselves, usually, I say. So, you know, this is why the book is so good. And it actually talks about, you know, what can you expect to do in terms of sex acts besides having sex itself. You know, what will the sexual person expect you to do, and things like this. And, you know, and it will explain a lot of the details that maybe you've been missed out. You know, I had some, because I am asexual, obviously, and I have had sex in the past, but I had a lot of details missed out about sex. You know, I hate porn. I would never look at magazines like that. I didn't get any sex magazines or anything like that. So my sex education at school was very, very limited. And that's why this book is so good. This is a book I honestly wished I had when I was 16 years old. And I think even sexuals should buy this book. And I think they will. Because I think a lot of sexuals that haven't had sex ever before can learn a lot from this book. It goes really through the ins and outs of sex, the mechanical stuff, the emotional stuff, the mental stuff. You know, it goes through what to prepare, how to stay safe, and all this type of thing, so they can make an informed choice. I wish I had this book. It would have filled in so many gaps for me. My sex education in biology at school was just white. I think I've told you before, it's literally one video of a girl dressed in an egg costume and a man dressed in a sperm costume going towards each other, and she's singing "One Day My Sperm Will Come." I mean, how is that sex education? How is that going to promote pregnancy? How's that really going to stop anything? How's that going to keep you safe? How's that going to prepare you for actual sexual intercourse? It's really not. And it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking, you know. And I know even now there's a lot of people who aren't even getting a proper sex education. You know, and I sometimes hear of asexuals that are having unprotected sex when they first have it, because they're not used to doing it, and they just don't really think about all that type of thing. And it's really worrying. It's very, very worrying, you know. Just because we're asexual doesn't mean to say we can't get pregnant. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's really, really important this book comes out from a safety aspect. You know, it'll be helping asexuals to make an informed choice and decision. When you can make an informed choice and decision for yourself, it's empowering, and it puts you in a more safer, controlled position than if you were going through it blindsided, right? Because sexuals can be very persuasive, right? We all know that sexuals can be very, very persuasive, right? And as much that we shouldn't give in to peer pressure, we shouldn't do anything we don't want to do. And I will always reiterate that, including not having sex if we don't want to. Some people can pile us with pressure. That's what I got on me, you know? And some of times we can be so like young, and we can be so naive, and we can be so in love that we just think, oh, well, I'll try it because he wants to do it or she wants to do it. And, you know, I think I should do it. And even though we might not really be in the right frame of mind to do it, you know, and it's not good to do it in that. And the book will go through all these type of different things. You know, some people will do it anyway, you know, because I was pressurized into it. I honestly say, just don't have sex with someone who's pressurized into it, obviously. But some people make mistakes in their life. Some people do things that are not exactly great for them, but they do them anyway, right? It's sometimes human nature that we do that. We're not perfect beings, right? So this book will help asexuals to stay safer in those type of situations, because they'll know what's coming up. They'll know what to expect. Therefore, it puts them in a more sense of control within that type of situation and environment, you know, and they can even see red flags that might be coming up, you know, before they come up. So it can save them a lot of pain or heartache, or at least put them in some sort of control of the situation more. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is so important. I wished I'd had all this information when I was a teenager in birth certificate age, you know. I really wished I had, because I would have felt much more confident and comfortable and educated about sex than just seeing some stupid video with a woman and a guy dressed up in outfits that means absolutely sweet FA to your well-being and health and and to actually staying safe and actually thinking whether you really do want sex or not. Do you know what I mean? Like, instead of something that everyone does and it's natural, because it isn't natural for asexuals a lot of the time. Many asexuals are not all, I'm not saying all asexuals are like this, but many asexuals, it doesn't come naturally to us, you know, and we need a book out there like this. We need a book that will teach us and show us the ins and outs of sex from a very educational, good, bad, and ugly perspective, not from a, oh, like everything's gonna be great, because sex can very well not be very great, you know? At times it left me feeling raw. At times I was crying. Sometimes it was okay when I had it. Other times I was bored with a certain guy. And then other times, it's scary. And, scary from the point of view that if someone's doing something they shouldn't be doing. And then other times, it's just like, oh, get on with it. And, and other times it's like, oh, it's okay. And other times, but I prefer the foreplay stuff. And then other times it's just like I used to sit there crying sometimes. I didn't know why I was crying. I'm like, why am I crying? But I know now it's because I was asexual and it's not something I really want to do, have sex. And that's why I'm glad I've stopped doing that now. I'm stopped having it, because I was only really having it for the sake of my partner at the time, which I don't think is a good reason to have it. But, unless you get so much pleasure out of really pleasing your partner and you want to do that, and it gives you good feelings and emotions. And, despite the fact you are asexual, just because you're asexual doesn't mean to say you couldn't like the emotions it gives you or the feeling in your body it gives you, if it's positive emotions and if it's a positive experience and feeling. This is why people confuse sexual attraction with sexual behavior. And I totally get it. I understand. I was confused myself for years on this when I first found out I was asexual, because sexual behavior is not the same as sexual attraction. So an asexual person could participate in sex, and it is possible that they could like some of the experience, because they could like the physicality, they could like the sensations. Some asexuals might. Like I said, for me, sometimes I didn't like it. I was crying and I didn't know why. And I will be writing about this in the book in my story, But other times I was okay with it. And I loved all the kissing and foreplay stuff, I didn't really want the intercourse. But, some people that have, like are asexual, that, everything works down below. They some might, even if it works down below, not have any sensation whatsoever, really think of like nothing much going on. And other asexuals might experience the physicality of the orgasm and everything like that, which I still don't really know what it is, and because I don't experience that as far as I know. And and they might get the physical pleasure like that and release, and they might like that type of thing and being close to the person, so physically. So what I'm saying, in this book it'll give a very, very balanced view, an educational view of sex. It won't, and that's why I'm loving writing it, because I really think the whole of society needs this book. I really do, because I think it'll benefit a lot of people that have never had sex before, even if they're not asexual, or those are very inexperienced. It's I've never seen a book. I mean, I don't really go reading sex books anyway, but I can't imagine there's a book on the market that's got, well, there's not going to be, is there? Because these questions are specifically asked by me, and they are literally everything I wished I'd known when I was 16, asked for sex for the first time. Everything I wished I'd known in a one book, And I think getting the experience of other people is invaluable, and not a lot of people will open up about their personal experiences in such depth as these people. My heart goes out to every single person that's helped. Obviously, the people are, I can't say who they are. They're anonymous in the book. Well, they use their alias, their first name or initials. Their privacy is kept. Mine isn't, because obviously I'm me. But their privacy is kept, so I can't say who they are. But if any of them are watching this channel at all, then I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking part in the book. I know I could not have written such a good book without you. It's really, really kind of you to take part, and I really, really appreciate you. So yeah, and it's anticipated because it's a book that's for asexuals, but obviously sexuals will probably be quite interested in it as well. It'll be a good book to give to a partner if you're asexual and you've got a partner who's sexual. It'll be very, very good, because a sexual should finally understand, if they read it, what an asexual goes through, what an asexual thinks about sex, what it feels like to them. There is no better way of explaining something to someone else who's not asexual than to give them this book. It will literally be, look, I'll buy you a copy yourself. You read it, or if you can't, share your own, or here's your own copy. devour it at home in your own time, read it, actually take it in and see actually with your own eyes and ears, visualize what it's actually like, because you can. When I'm reading the book, like even when someone read their own story back, they said it was a really weird experience when they read the very final bit of it, because they said it was like they were looking at it from an outsider point of view, forgetting it was their own personal story, and it was weird. And that's what you do when you're reading it. You read it as though you are in and out, you are you, but you're inside the person's brain nearly. Do you know what I mean? And so, I think finally, I'll be so happy that there's a book out there which shows people how different an asexual mind and feelings actually is to do with sex. And that is why, I get a bit emotional about this book, because I am so happy it's coming out. It's well overdue. I mean, society has never, ever allowed asexuals to have their say like this. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing that I know of. I mean, obviously, my first book, Asexual Perspectives, talks about sex and what it was like to try. So, it is introduced in that. That's a good book as well, which is my first book that I did, but this is not focused solely on sex. It's just a little part of it, whereas this is specifically just focused on the sex. When I say the sex, the emotional, the mental, the physical, the preparation for it, whether an asexual should even do it, where an asexual can get any benefit themselves out of it, and what happens to an asexual when they do first do that, and how, thanks for the thumbs up, and and how does it make them feel, and I just know it's going to be valuable and insightful for everyone who reads it. Honestly, it's just because I really wished I'd had this book. I was basically pressurized into having sex at 16 years old, and I was so naive. Oh, hi, Heather. Oh, thank you, Heather. Thank you. I'm still doing the book, but I'm doing, it is a good job. The people in the book are doing a good job. And I just think, it's a huge deal, because I know if people in society, like tons of people, sexuals, for example, get hold of this book, they will finally be able to shut up saying that asexuals don't exist and it's not real. Do you know what I mean? They'll finally be able to have to just stop saying that, because unless they're completely ignorant and completely don't want to know and don't actually read the thing and don't want to hear about it, then they will have to open their eyes and see that asexuals really don't naturally want sex. It's not inherently a part of us, and it's very interesting to see the way asexuals separate love from sex, which we do. We separate the two, and it's very insightful in that way. It really, really does dive deep into that aspect, but it shows this, doesn't just tell. That's what I liked about my first book. It showed asexuality, it didn't tell. It showed it in its essence. Anyone can pick up a book and read it, right? A mechanical read. It takes a lot of guts to get people to actually write their own stories and to share those very, very intimate personal details with the world, basically. And this book's going to be great for any, like I said, any partner that you've got who's not asexual, or thinking about being with an asexual person. They're not actually with an asexual person yet, but they're thinking about being with an asexual. Give them the book. Parents, if you want your parents to understand you more, they might be a bit like, oh, I don't even know half of that, which they probably won't. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll be a bit too shy to give it to your parents. But if you're really open and friendly with your parents, maybe like your mum's like your best girlfriend or something. You know what I mean? You got that type of relationship. Maybe you can pop the book in their hand. They'll probably learn a lot. I'm telling you, experienced people who are sexual will probably learn a lot from this book. They'll be like, well, I thought I knew everything there was to know about sex, but now I don't. I'm interested. Do you know what I mean? People, teachers would be great. People at school, counselors should read the book. Anyone should get the book who wants to understand asexuals better, or who even, like people who are sex therapists and stuff, they should actually get the book and see that asexuality is a genuine thing. I mean, don't forget, a lot of sex therapists and a lot of people who deal with sex, a lot of them want want people to need sex because then they provide them with a job. Do you know what I mean? If a lot of people decide, actually, I don't want sex, it cuts down a lot of people's jobs. Cuts down a lot of people who do all the selling of sex products, all the advertising of sex products, all the advertising of sex magazines. It cuts them down, doesn't it? And all the sex people that are pumping Viagra at people, you know, to get sex, you know, it all the people that are producing those pills and that pumping them, you know, if people love without sex, and yes, that's really a thing, and people actually start believing that in society, knowing it's true, then obviously it'll cut a lot of those type of things out. People won't be buying them as much. So that's why a lot of people don't want people to know. That's why a lot of society don't want people to know that that love exists without sex, because you see what I mean? The advertisers don't want people to know that. People who produce sex products don't want people to know that, because the less people that are interested in sex, the less they've got to sell their products to, you know? Just think how much money the company that has Viagra makes. It must be stack loads, you know? Last year I went to my local supermarket, and a few months before Christmas, I think it was October, they had like Viagra next to the till. You know, what about, you don't need Viagra, you can have love without sex? That would be such a more powerful, endearing message for everyone in society, in the world, to know. You don't need sex, you just need love. But instead, they want to pump chemical pills down people to like make them do something they don't naturally want to do. I mean, what about all those people that can't naturally, you know, have sex? Maybe some of those are asexuals, or they just have a low sex drive and they can just be loved without sex. Why is it imperative that they have sex, and there's something wrong with them if they can't physically or don't want to? Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It just pumps a really bad negative message out to people. It sends a message out to people that, you know, if you can't have sex for whatever reason, there's something wrong in you, there's something broken, and something needs fixing. There's nothing. You know, I believe the God, universe, power that be, whatever it is, even if someone's impotent, I think it's obviously they're like that for a reason, right? I know some people who are impotent might get a bit upset if I say that, but I believe everything happens for a reason. I've got a disability, I've got fibromyalgia for life. Do you know what I mean? Since 2012. I think I've got that for a reason, because I can help other people with fibro. And not only that, it's I'm happiest I've ever been since I got that. My whole life has changed for the better forever since I got that. It's thanks to my fibro that I lived this young, quirky teenager life. I got so much energy now because it completely changed my mindset. Fibromyalgia was the catalyst for changing my life in the most positive way possible, which you won't probably hear any other fibro people say that, but that is what happened to me. Completely changed my life. I stopped being depressed when I got fibro, which fibro usually makes people depressed because of the condition. You know, so you should never let your limits limit you, right? And if someone's got, you know, if someone's impotent, they just can't have sex. They're not asexual, but they're impotent. There's nothing wrong with them. They were designed like that, right? There's no need to pop a pill and try and correct it, right? If a person's designed like that, they're designed like that. Go and find yourself an asexual partner. I'm sure an asexual can give you the love you need, you know? Go and do other pursuits. Go and live your dreams. Stop worrying about your bits down below. Do you know what I'm saying? Make the best use of your life with what you've got, and start. I wish people would stop focusing on people having problems and they need to be fixed, you know? It's like some people with mental health problems, right? Some people with mental health problems do need some help, because obviously their mental health problems are so severe that they could be suicidal, and you know, in a really bad way. And I think, you know, the best thing to do is therapeutic stuff, you know, like talking, counselors, therapists. I don't think popping pills really is the answer to the problem. You know, you're not, a lot of the time, you're not getting down to the root cause of the problem. I do realize some people have to take pills because of certain conditions, which would make them very unstable and maybe dangerous. But, you know, overall, I think that, you know, popping pills is not the answer, you know? And I think that society gives such a bad impression, a bad, you know, like bad thing about people. But some people with mental health difficulties, the reason they got mental health difficulties is because they can think outside the box. They don't think like the average robotic person. They think of 10, 15, 5,000 things at once, which maybe is not good for their mind, but it's because they can think imaginatively. They're very creative. They can think in ways other people don't think of. And because of that, they feel not normal. But in the end of the day, it's the other people that going in their robotic lives that are the people that are missing this outside stuff that we can see. And the reason a lot of people get mental health problems is because they have anxiety and stuff, because they have so many questions. They can see stuff in a completely different light. They've got so many things bursting out of them, questions and answers and things they need to know, because their mind's very active. They're very active people in their mind. They're not passive. So when someone thinks there's something wrong because you're not normal, the people that are diagnosing you, a lot of the time, the doctors are leading this normal robotic type of life. So they're not going to know any different. They're going to think something's wrong with you because they're not like that. They can't think outside the box. They might be going home to wife and kids, going to watch TV, and then going and doing their work. And then they're, like even counselling, when you're taught, I mean, I did a very, very basic counselling course, and you're taught certain things you should be saying. You're like given a script. I couldn't do counselling. I'm too empathetic and sympathetic for that, right? And I can't, I don't want to go to this script type of thing, And it's very interesting because I watched a guy who used to be a therapist. He used to be a therapist and left being a therapist because of all the actual stuff that goes on. His channel is very, very insightful. And it tells about what therapists are told to tell their patients. And they're actually told a lot of the time to give them pills instead of trying to help them find a solution to their problems without the pills. A lot of the time they're purposely, told to give them pills and stuff, which is not good. And there's certain ways they persuade people, they phrase questions a certain way and things like that. You got to be so careful of, And so, I think there's a lot to be said for getting in depth, up close and personal experience of sex, and also of knowing that you can have love without sex. And if for whatever reason you're asexual or you're even a different type of sexuality, but you can't have sex for whatever reason, it's okay to be you, right? It's okay. You weren't born the same way as everyone else, but that doesn't matter. We're all different, I mean, people who are sexual, they have different sexual appetites. Some of them want it once a week. Some of them want it 5 times a day. Do you know what I'm saying? Everyone's different, And what I love about this Asexual Guide to Sex book is I just think it'll give people a completely different perspective overall of sex, and really, in a very educational way, in a way that's very sophisticatedly done, in a way that's very, very thoughtful, in a way that answers all the really critical questions you always wanted to know when you're first thinking about doing that. Even people that are haven't got that much experience, I think it will help them. The people that didn't have an education like me, it was like, what am I meant to think? What am I meant to do? Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, it can be really difficult if you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? And I think sometimes it comes naturally to certain asexuals, maybe, and not to others. Overall, I'd say it doesn't come naturally to the majority of us, right? But I just think that this book is so anticipated because I think a lot of sexuals will want to buy it as well, because I think that if they really look at the content, they'll know there's a lot of gaps missed out in their knowledge and their information about sex. So many people are just like, all they see is the intercourse stuff. They don't see all the actual stuff that goes on mentally and emotionally. They don't see all the relationship dynamic and how sex affects a relationship, which is what this book will teach you and show you, is how sex can affect a relationship, especially an asexual to sexual. Sometimes it might work out well, and sometimes it won't work out never again, right? That's the kind of nature of this book, right? It shows the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think it's good because I think it's got balance in there. I think there's some people that have a positive attitude towards sex in the book, and there's some asexuals that end up having a negative attitude towards sex in the book in some ways. But you might find that a lot of the time it's a blend of a bit of both for different reasons. So I just think it's going to be so insightful. I don't think there's anything like it on the market out there, and I really think it's going to do people a lot of good to read it, And I think asexuals that have never had sex, that don't want it ever, some of those, I think some of you who are watching this now, you will be curious. You'll be like, well, I don't want to have it, but I kind of want to experience what it'd be like for someone else to have it, so I don't have to have it, but I've had that experience. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit of a weird thing, but some people, it's a bit like when you go into a virtual reality thing and put a headset on, right? You can see, experience something without actually being there physically yourself. That's what the book is, I think, is like. So some asexuals that definitely don't want sex, they might be curious to know what it feels like from an asexual point of view, particularly. So therefore, they would get the book anyway, just to have that kind of experience without physically getting involved themselves, which is the most safest thing to do, right? You can experience what another person experiences without going through it yourself, you know? I think that's why people love virtual reality so much, because they know they're pretty safe in a lot of respects. They can't really get physically hurt unless they decide that they can't see what they're doing and fall over something, of course, when they're doing. And, you know, it can scare people doing virtual reality stuff as well. But, you know, I think it's just going to be really, really good. I think it's going to answer every pending question that asexuals want to know before they try sex, if they're thinking about having it for the first time, or if they're really damn well confused and maybe they've tried it once or twice and they're like, I don't really get it, I don't understand, I feel that I'm missing something. It will answer that. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's very brave of all these asexuals. I mean, imagine sharing your first sexual experience with anyone that reads a book. I mean, it takes incredible courage to do that. And I know particularly one person who I mentioned before, you know, they're in the book, and we had over a 5 hour Skype conversation. I think 4.5 hours of that was actually the book. We had a half an hour as well. And this person has got the same vision for the book as me. So really, it can truly impact the world and change both asexuals and even sexuals' lives. It will even help some sexuals. At the end of the day, we're all in the same world, whether we're asexual or not, you know? If the book helps sexuals too, which I think it will help a lot of people who are sexual, who are teenagers, right? Who maybe, you know, like shouldn't even be having sex, but you know, who you know, like, needs to understand this stuff on the fundamental deep level that this book will give, that there's just not anything else out there on the market like it. Nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? And I want to help as many people as possible. I want to help those people, even they're not asexual, that might be thinking about trying it for the first time sex, and they're really scared and they don't know what the hell they're doing. Because when you're a teenager, you don't want to admit that you don't know how to do sex, or you don't understand it, or you don't get how it works, you don't understand what to do. Who wants to admit that when everyone around them's going, oh, I'm crazy about sex and everything's great? Which we know is not necessarily the case. You know what I mean? Where do these people go? How do they get actual good education? How do they understand what's happening to their body? How do they know what to do? How can they prepare? Do you know what I mean? So, you know, obviously, if you're an asexual person, you have got sexual friends, I would urge you to get them to buy a copy as well, because it will be beneficial to them, you know? At the end of the day, you know, the book is Asexual Guide to Sex, and asexuals have had sex before, so obviously some sexuals are going to want to buy the book as well. Do you know what I'm saying? It's going to happen like that. And that's why I kind of like this book as well. I feel it merges the huge difference between sexuals and asexuals. It kind of merges them together a bit more. You can show how it might work together, or it might not very much not work together, but you can show how you can show the different scenarios. And I think, it's a more safer option to do that than to just plunge in and not know what the heck you're doing and not know anything about it, or even think about doing it. Because, I mean, the world can be a great place, and it can also be a scary place, and the more you're prepared, the more better it is. I mean, if you have anxiety, or anything like me with anxiety, you want to be prepared for stuff as much as possible, right? You want to have as much information as possible to hand, so you're prepared, right? That's how you kind of lessen anxiety a bit, by being prepared. Or that's how I do it anyway. One of my coping mechanisms is to know as much as possible about the subject that I possibly can. And therefore, if anything crops up, I really know how to deal with it. I'm confident and competent in it because I've learned that stuff, right? So I think this book helps anyone, who's got anxiety around sex and the sexual experience. It can help you to understand it better, to feel calmer about it, to feel more collected about it, to understand it in a more educational way, not a disgusting way that people keep, poking our faces. I don't like that. There's no need for it. I mean, the amount of sexual people that are actually embarrassed talking about sex is ridiculous. You get the sexuals that are openly talk about sex, when it suits them, and then you get the rest of the sexuals, they're actually embarrassed when someone like me who's asexual actually talks about it openly, honestly, explicitly. They're like, oh, she's talking about sex, we can't talk about that, yet the whole world's full of it, right? But it's all kept in secret. It's all kept under, it's like going underground a lot of the time, isn't it? You know, it's like sex is all over the advertising, everywhere in soaps, on TV, in newspapers, whatever. But when it comes to actually talking about it as a society in general, it's either really flashed in your face by the people that are sex crazy, or it's like you know, it's like kind of like kept in secret. And so a lot of this secrecy stuff doesn't really help people to have better relationships, better communication skills, better confidence. You know what I mean? It's all kind of like shoved in your face, but yet everyone's quiet about it. Who really needs the answers and help and support? Do you know what I mean? I mean, before 2014 would not talk about sex. I didn't talk about it with my best friends. Well, I can't remember exactly what best friends I had back then, but yeah, yeah. How long have I known my female best friend for? I've known her for 7 about sex. This is the 8th year I've known her now. I've known her since 2012, actually. Yeah, 8 years this year. So yeah, and I found out it was asexual in 2014. So for those 2 years, I didn't talk about sex, right? So I'm giving you an example of how I didn't speak about it, you know? And I was very shy and very reserved, but there are certain things that I knew from experience. But also, you know, there's a lot more you can learn. And if you're anything like me, who's shy and stuff, you don't really want to go around asking people stuff that you feel that you should know that you don't know. And that's what will help, you know, with this book. You know, it will really help educate people, and it'll help people to understand how the whole sex things work on an intellectual level, on a spiritual level, an emotional level, mental level, all that type of thing. So that's why it really is, it's the most anticipated book of 2020, because it's anticipated for asexuals predominantly, but also some sexuals even on this channel. I know that watch this channel, they're really looking forward to the book, because it's a book that they wish they'd had when they were younger, and they, you know, they might still, a lot of younger sexuals watch this channel anyway. A lot of them don't tend to say too much, but I know they're there, and you know, it'll be very good for them to read the book as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting this book out. I've still got a way to go. I suspect, you know, it'll be out by June this year. You know, I say June this year because it takes a year to normally write a book, and I started in June last year. So if it goes out quicker, that's fine, but I've got other business stuff that I do need to work on this year before then. So, you know, I'm anticipating to be around the June sort of time that will come out, maybe actually be published. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've got still more stories to work on, which I'll be working on over the weekend. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. If you like this video and you haven't already done so, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments, queries, or questions, want to know anything about the book, in the meantime, please leave it down below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Andy, for watching. I really appreciate you being here. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that great big bell icon to get notified of every time I go live. Right now, post a new video. I do like to give thanks always to people who are in chat. So lots of love to Theola. Thank you so much for joining me. Lots of love to Richard. Lots of love to one of my best friends, Andy. And lots of love to you, Heather. And of course, for the people that were trying to troll, you need love the most a lot of the time, because you're too busy trolling to do anything else. So sending you some love. And anyway, it's really nice to see you all, and take care, and I love you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Heather. Thank you, Richard and Viola. Lots of love. Take care. Brace your quirky on each other. See you soon. Bye.